Every food item in Minecraft has different ingredients, different in-game uses, and restores a different amount of hunger points. But every food item has one thing in common, that it is essential for survival, kind of like in real life.
Bruh.
Hello, I'm Chloe of the Everhearth Inn, and today I'm going to
There's like like 200 different felonies in the United States, and today I'm gonna be making a mod that lets you commit every single one in Minecraft, from airplane hijacking all the way to the serial killing. So here's how I added being a serial killer to Minecraft. Instead of disappearing, bodies now stay on the ground, and you can tell that they're dead and not just sleeping because, like in real life, they'll have X's over their eyes. If an iron golem saw you do that, it'll get mad at you, but luckily you can pick up a body and carry it around like this, although you do need both of your hands. And you could just leave the bodies in your basement, but that's not very hygienic, and carry it around like this, although you do need both of your hands. And you could just leave the bodies in your basement, but that's not very hygienic. So over time, it'll start to smell, and it'll even come up through your floorboards, especially if you're like me and you have a bunch of them under there. To avoid this, you could leave a body in the snow and wait for it to eventually get covered, but someone else might stumble onto it later. So you could do what I usually do, which is put them in between some pistons like this and squeeze them into juice, and then just let the juice trickle back into the river that the villagers drink from. Player bodies now stay on the ground as well, but you might be wondering, how do we get their items then? And the answer is to just right click them with shears, which will open them right up and drop all the items they were holding. I also added serial killing, but what if you didn't want to kill them? What if you just wanted to hurt them? That brings us to our next felony, which is battery. To start off with, I made redstone blocks run out of power over time, which means you'll need to use a battery like this one. You can charge them up by manually pulling a lever back and forth, and just like in real life, this will make one of your arms much bigger than the other, which makes it easier to commit crimes like battery or aggravated battery, which is when you yell beforehand. Ah! You can throw a battery in some water to get battery acid, and just like in real life, if you drink it, you'll get transported to the energy dimension. There's infinite battery acid here and electricity flowing around everywhere, and the creepers are obviously charged, but so are all the other mobs. On the bright side, there are these spa structures and masseuse villagers for you to rest and recharge at, and redstone in the energy dimension is still infinite. I also added this aggravated battery, and now we've done like 3 out of 200 felonies. Since we still have so many of them to go through, let's do a little speed round before we get back to the heavy stuff like unending physical and psychological torture. This is assault, and if you get some water from the ocean and boil it, you'll get assault, and this is assault with assault, and this is assault with a deadly weapon. This does also count for attempt to commit murder, but for posterity, I'll also push this villager off a cliff where they'll be left on 1 heart and 0 working legs. First degree murder is where you meant to do it and planned it all out, so here is me building a very complex redstone machine that ends up crushing a villager. Second degree murder is where you meant to do it but didn't plan it out, so I'm just gonna close my eyes and shoot until I hear a villager die. And third degree murder is where you didn't even mean to do it, so here's me feeding a peanut to a villager that I didn't know had a nut allergy. This is assassination. This is vandalism. This is arson. This is bombing matters. And if you put them together, this is use of fire and explosives to destroy property. I just now realized I forgot to do these in alphabetical order, but this is animal cruelty, and making the sheep give birth to this half sheep, half Enrod 9 months later is also probably animal cruelty. But if you breed these half sheep, half Enrods together to make sheep that are only 1/4 sheep and 3/4 Enrod, is that still animal cruelty? What about if you keep breeding and you get to these sheep that are 90% Enrod and only 10% sheep? Anyways, every time you steal from a village, that's robbery. But in order to let you shoplift, I had to add a Walmart to every village. And now you can just run through the aisles and take everything you want. Now I'm gonna add airplane hijacking, but for this to make sense in Minecraft, I have to first add a fully realistic flying. Now I'm gonna add airplane hijacking, but for this to make sense in Minecraft, I have to first add a fully realistic flying experience to the game. After you get to the airport, you'll have to put all of your items into separate trays at security, which means if you have 64 cobblestone, you'll need 64 trays. Also, you'll have to take off your shoes, and you can bring bottles of liquid, but not buckets. Just like in real life, if you empty out a lava bucket at the airport, you're going to cause a huge scene and probably be arrested by the police. Assuming you get through security, you can hop on any flight to any biome or structure. And once you're on the plane, you can pay the flight attendants extra for airplane food, like airplane meat, which was obviously farmed at an airplane farm. Sometimes there will be turbulence, and if you think you can do a better job of flying the plane, you're welcome to hop into the pilot's cabin and give it a try. I also added laser pointers so that you can point a laser at an airplane. Now, some could argue that the airport airplane experience is torture enough on its own, but to be thorough, I added regular torture to Minecraft anyways. Regular torture isn't very effective since you don't feel the pain in real life, so instead, your Minecraft world is now a giant simulation. And when you spawn in, you'll be given a life purpose, like finding a girlfriend, but you'll be rejected again and again and again, no matter how many tutorials you watch. Sometimes, to give you a bit of false hope, you'll get the girl and raise a family together and watch your baby take its first steps, just to see them all be unalived right in front of you. And then you'll have to alternate between dealing with your grief and trying to avenge your family forever while they taunt you. When you've abandoned all hope, you might do something like this, and then you'll respawn again with no memory of what's happened. I also added torture, which is where you're just here forever. And I already added vehicular man's laughter in this video, along with transformers and tickling. And I know the thumbnail says Hawk Tua, but I added identity theft and kidnapping in this video. But even though we made good progress getting through all the violent felonies in a video, there were just way too many felonies to fit into one video. So I'm adding all the financial crimes like insider trading and tax fraud next time, so subscribe to not miss it. And like this video if you liked committing violent felonies in Minecraft, or standing on top of thousands of villager bodies, or drinking battery acid, and I'll see you next time.
Playing the precision of these units. You see, when we watch him on Twitch, we only see the tribal villages that Andrew reaches before other players. This actually leads to, in many cases, an undercount of the tribal villages Andrew finds and an underestimation of the efficiency of his moves. In this Germany game, for instance, a viewer watching Andrew's stream could be forgiven for thinking he's not cheating. His units are lucky, sure, but they take winding detours that don't seem necessary if his goal is getting as many goody huts as possible. And they don't always seem to find all that many of them. However, these inefficiencies are an illusion. Because of how long it takes to transfer the autosaves from a Civ game to Civ Replay, Andrew is only able to load the turn 1 autosave into the program to scout the map. This means that he only knows where the tribal villages were at the start of the game, not whether or not they've already been taken by other players. If we look at the map on turn 1 in Civ Replay and draw Andrew's scouting lines on top, we can see that many seemingly random detours were actually the result of rushing for tribal villages that were simply taken by other players before Andrew got to them. There really is no wasted movement here. As a reminder, different terrains in Civ 6 have different movement costs associated with them. While these zigzags might appear at first glance to not be the shortest possible paths to tribal villages, calculating the number of turns it takes to actually traverse these paths reveals that they are, indeed, mathematically perfect routes to the goody huts and city-states Andrew is pursuing. What about the actual data, though? How many huts is Andrew really getting? Luckily, Civ Replay makes it easy to find this out by adding a pop-up window that lets us track how many tribal villages each player has earned. By tallying these up, we can get a quick overview of how well Andrew's performing in these games. For instance, in this game, Andrew received 13 huts, and the total number of huts found in this game by everyone was 46. This means Andrew received roughly 28% of the total huts in this lobby. In 10-player games, we know that the average number of huts acquired will always be exactly 10%. Out of the 6 games for which save files have been reviewed, Andrew's huts earned have been above average in 5 of them, and in the remaining one, he earned exactly as many huts as would be expected in an 11-player lobby, 9%. By adjusting the hut percentages to reflect a lobby size of 11 players, we can see that Andrew finds, on average, 19% of the huts in any given game, rather than the expected value of 10%. While one could argue in a vacuum that he finds more huts than other players because his scouting is more skilled than other players, that hypothesis has already been thoroughly disproven by the analysis of his scout movements we performed earlier. While we would have liked to get a higher sample size for this analysis, the problem is that we can't get data on games that we don't have save files for. As players rarely ever store save files for older games, this investigation was only able to sample games that were played after Andrew came under scrutiny, by messaging players participating in his games and asking them for save files. In some ways, this is a blessing. By being forced to analyze only games Andrew played after the start of the investigation, and including all of those games, there is no risk of cherry-picking or biased data selection. As Andrew only plays a Civ game once every couple of days, our 3-week-long investigation was only able to actually procure the save files for 6 games total, which is reflected in the data. Rest assured, however, that we have reviewed over a dozen more games from Twitch VODs that Andrew was kind enough to leave up, and included in those are all 3 of the games we stepped through at the start of the video. So far, every game we've looked at has been a ranked game Andrew played within the past month. A problem we run into when investigating a player for cheating is that the record keeping for competitive Civ 6 is fairly sparse, with the vast majority of games having no surviving save files or video recordings. However, even with what little information we have, I feel confident in asserting that Andrew has been cheating for almost 2 years at least. On YouTube, Andrew has himself posted videos which exhibit the exact same behavior we've covered so far, that include games played as early as March 25th, 2023. His highly inefficient, unnatural scout moves are continually rewarded with a stream of tribal villages and city-state first meets. Ultimately, several weeks ago, the CPL admins decided to ban Andrew for suspected cheating. Shortly afterwards, Andrew submitted an appeal that attempts to argue his innocence. However, this appeal is full of intentional deception. As Andrew cheated in every single game he possibly could, he is forced to lie and misrepresent the facts in order to manufacture examples where he appears to get unlucky with his scouting, despite none actually existing. For instance, take this excerpt from the document submitted. Here, he argues that his warrior takes a principled rush for the tundra, but fails to find anything in the process. However, the screenshot is cropped to hide the reality, which is that his warrior had found 3 tribal villages that were acquired as quickly as possible. Notice how he chose to cut off his screenshot just before his warrior reached the tribal village that it was aiming for. In this other example, Andrew tries to argue that his units move inefficiently, avoiding tribal villages in a way that no cheater would. However, if we consult the save files ourselves, we're able to find that Andrew's units actually moved in the exact optimal paths to maximize the number of huts they could acquire long term. Andrew even removed several huts his units have already collected or revealed from the screenshot in order to downplay their efficiency. It's not just that there are discrepancies like this in many of Andrew's counterexamples, they're actually present in all of Andrew's counterexamples. His appeal fails to prove that his scouting is ever inaccurate in any of the games for which the mod team has save files. In another part of the document, Andrew tries arguing that he doesn't always succeed in finding scientific city-states quickly. The problem with this claim is that he only gives 2 examples, both from deleted Twitch VODs. Fortunately, the investigation is aware of the exact games he's referencing. Both of them were played on the 5.9 beta version of the Better Balanced Game mod over 2 months ago. It's well known that this version of the mod was incompatible with Civ Replay. The BBG 5.9 beta was used in nearly every game for over a month in CPL, and shortly after its release, Andrew started a month-long hiatus from playing. The investigation into Andrew already looked at these games and concluded that they displayed none of the suspicious behavior that characterizes other games. And this is actually the main reason Andrew is believed specifically to have used Civ Replay to cheat. Using these examples is not necessarily evidence of dishonesty, but they also can't serve to exonerate him either. All Andrew's appeal needed to accomplish in order to overturn his ban was to establish a reasonable doubt that he is guilty of cheating. Unfortunately, it fails to meet this standard. As a result, it is the determination of the CPL admins that Andrew will remain permanently banned from the community. There are those who have expressed fears about the possibility of players in the future being falsely accused and banned after a string of lucky games. However, these concerns are unwarranted. The reality is that a game in which a player merely gets lucky looks nothing like a game in which a player is cheating. For instance, I recently played a game with the new rank 1 player on the all-time leaderboard, Benjamin Botsim, where he joked that he found so many tribal villages that an investigation could be launched into him for cheating. Of course, I investigated the game in Civ Replay right afterwards. What we find is that, despite Ben finding an abnormally high 8 tribal villages in the early game, his moves don't resemble those of a cheater at all. All of his moves are natural and principled, and there are a significant number of inefficiencies that a player with full knowledge of the map would have easily avoided. Comparing Ben's scouting to Andrew's makes this difference obvious. Furthermore, even if Ben's scouting had been perfectly accurate, it would take a significant sample size of games in order for action to be taken against a player. An innocent player would have no problem producing plenty of genuine counterexamples that show normal scouting. The intention of this video is not to stoke drama, but to aid in cultivating a fair, competitive environment for Civ 6. Every serious competitor has an obligation to call out cheating whenever they see it. So, what can we do going forward? Unfortunately, extending the level of scrutiny that has been placed upon Andrew's games to every other player is simply infeasible. Civ Replay, which is believed to be the simplest method of cheating, has been receiving regular updates that include safety measures to make cheating more difficult, but there exist methods that tech-savvy individuals can use to get around them. Civ Replay is, however, a delicate program. Even minor gameplay mods outside of the regular CPL mod list have been known to break its functionality and prevent its usage. While this prevents the easiest method of cheating, it's by no means a foolproof solution, and it comes at the cost of preventing players from easily reviewing their games. Thank you all for watching to the end of this video, and if any of this made you curious to see what competitive Civ 6 actually looks like, be sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the channel. That's all for now. Herson signing out.
In this video, we're doing a deep dive into the world of truffles, which at upwards of $1,000 per pound for black winter truffles and over $3,000 per pound for white truffles, these are easily one of the most expensive ingredients in the world. But if you're like me, I've always wondered, are fresh truffles actually worth it? So, over the past couple of weeks, I spent close to $1,000 on various truffles and truffle products and ran them through 6 different experiments in an attempt to answer every question I could possibly think of when it comes to truffles. And by the end of this video, I promise you'll have an answer to these 3 questions. 1, are black truffles worth it? 2, are the more expensive white truffles worth it? And 3, are there any good substitutes like the oil for fresh truffles? And everything I learned in this video was not only interesting, but some of it was shocking. For example, did you know that fresh white truffles do not taste like fresh black truffles? They actually have fundamentally different aroma profiles, and side by side, the fragrance is quite different. But it gets even more confusing when we get to truffle products. For example, there are some truffle oils, pastes, and powders that have black truffles on the label, but these products are actually mimicking the smell of white truffles. And this melted my brain. There is so much confusion when it comes to fresh truffles versus truffle products, but today that starts to change. So to begin our truffle journey, let's answer why. But today that starts to change. So to begin our truffle journey, let's answer, why are truffles so expensive in the first place? But first, thank you to today's sponsor, Made In, who makes some of my absolute favorite pans you'll see in this video. Made In designs professional quality products for the home cook, and specifically, I want to talk about the stainless clad collection. Their premium 5-ply is Zoda, and thank you Made In for sponsoring this video. But now, sit back, relax, and let's go underground. Truffles are an edible fungus from the tuber species that grow at the base of living trees. However, many people assume they are some type of mushroom, but that's actually not the case. They are different in two key ways. First, truffles fruit underground into a ball-like shape, and this is unlike mushrooms which fruit above the ground into an edible stem and cap. And secondly, truffles live in a symbiotic relationship with living trees, and they do this by extending a tree roots network. Mushrooms and most fungi, on the other hand, feed on and decompose decaying trees. And in this case, the underground truffles pass on water and nutrients to the tree in exchange for carbs and sugars in the soil. And this is what turns truffles into a dense and aromatic fruiting body. And because they are underground, they've evolved to be highly aromatic, so they can be found by animals such as pigs and dogs. And the truffle is the reproductive fruiting body of the fungus, and it's full of spores that are waiting to be distributed throughout the forest, or in our case, to our mouths. And this is what we see in that gorgeous cross-section. And today, there are actually over 30 species of truffles that are commercially traded. However, all truffles are not created equally. Truffles can vary quite a bit in terms of texture, color, and aroma. And in fact, some truffles are completely odorless, which is a far cry from some of the most popular ones. The two most popular ones tend to be the black winter truffle, or Tuber melanosporum, which this 22-gram truffle cost me $58. And even more sought after is the white truffle, or Tuber magnatum. This single 20-gram truffle is the white truffle, or Tuber magnatum. This single 20-gram truffle cost me $153, or over $3,000 per pound. So why are white truffles over 3 times the price? Well, there's more than just one reason, and we'll get into those. But one of the reasons that truffles in general are so expensive is probably something you've heard about, and that is truffles are really hard to reproduce on the farm. Why exactly? Well, truffles are usually native to regions with lots of limestone in the soil, and this makes for a super high pH, or basic growing environment. And this is why you find naturally occurring truffles in European regions like Spain, France, or Italy. They happen to have the super high pH, or basic growing environment. And this is why you find naturally occurring truffles in European regions like Spain, France, or Italy. They happen to have the right type of soil for wild edible truffles to occur. Now, even if you start in the right environment, as is beginning to happen in Spain and experimentally in the US with certain black truffle varieties, farming truffles is still very tricky. People try to farm truffles by inoculating the right soil near the right trees with the truffle spores, but there's still a big problem. And that is, you have to wait a really long time. Depending on the species, truffles can take 6 to 10 years to fruit. So it might take a decade to find out if you have successfully inoculated the tree roots, meaning it's a really slow feedback cycle to adjust your techniques and become profitable. So until agriculture engineering can figure it out, truffles are going to remain really expensive. Now, the thing I've been wondering about for years is, are people obsessed with truffles because they are scarce, expensive, and have this almost mystical aura around how they are grown and harvested, or do they actually just taste really freaking good? So let's unpack this by answering this question. From a food science perspective, what is the flavor of truffles? And this is the section that forced me to forget what I thought I knew about how truffles work. At a high level, these 6 properties make up the flavor of food: taste, aroma, texture, physical reaction, sight, and the human element. And when it comes to using fresh truffles in our cooking, it's best to primarily think of them as an herb, spice, or aromatic vegetable. Things like adding fresh basil to your pizza, using vanilla in ice cream, sauteing some fresh garlic, or adding freshly shaved truffle to your pasta all have one thing in common. We are adding them to provide aroma, or simply put, to make our food smell better. So what do truffles smell like? Well, based on a lot of the truffle-flavored foods and products, you may think that black and white truffles smell pretty similar and could be considered as a substitute for each other, but as I found out, that's actually not the case. So I grabbed out the truffles to get some B-roll of the white and black ones side by side for the first time, and I gave them a sniff and was like, wait, the white truffle smells like the truffle oil and the black truffle paste, but the fresh black truffle smells really good, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't smell like the white truffle, and it also doesn't smell like this truffle oil or black truffle paste. And this is the first time I've sliced and cooked with my own truffle, so I had this moment where I was like, why doesn't this smell like I think it should? Is it a fake or something? I didn't. I got a real winter black truffle, or tuber melanosporum, from Europe, but this is where I realized we've kind of been misdirected for years with a lot of the truffle products that are out there. Now, we need to nerd out a little bit and talk about some sciencey terms, but I promise this will all make sense. So, if you've ever had anything truffle flavored, a truffle oil, or truffle paste, the most common synthetic flavor ingredient added to it is 2,4-dithiapentane. So, why is 2,4-dithiapentane so important? Well, if you take a look at this table from an overview on truffle aromas published in December 2020, across the top are 10 different varieties of truffles, 7 black and 3 white. And down the side, there are 137 individual volatile organic compounds that have been identified in these various truffles. Now, as we learned in the vanilla video from last year, there can be hundreds of aroma compounds in a single vanilla bean. But there's one compound that is stronger than all the rest in a higher concentration, and that is vanillin. Vanillin is the compound that we primarily identify as the smell of vanilla, and it's also the compound that is synthetically made and added to imitation vanilla. So hopefully you can see where we're going. You're probably thinking, oh, that 2,4-dithiapentane is probably the key aroma molecule in all truffles then, right? Well, if we go to the table, we can see that 2,4-dithiapentane's odor description is sulfuric garlic. And if we go to the white truffle, or tuber magnetum, the most prized one, we can see that 67 to 83 of the relative area percentage is made up of 2,4-dithiapentane. Chemically, it's the same structure as the one added to many truffle oils and truffle products. But if we scroll across to the black truffles and look at tuber melanosporum, here's the kicker. Winter black truffles, or any variety of these black truffles in the table, do not have 2,4-dithiapentane in them. And what I found out is that most truffle products are actually made from summer black truffles, or tuber aestivum. And the funny part about this is, these black truffles are essentially odorless. As noted from the Truffle Hunter, these truffles are harvested in massive quantities in the summer across Europe and the Near East, and this is the truffle that keeps the industry afloat. Any packaged product using truffle is likely using this one, and it also looks exactly like people think a truffle should look like. But what it lacks is aroma. Now, because it lacks aroma, it's mixed with flavoring, as you'll see on the label for various truffle products. And this is likely made up of a couple aroma compounds, but the primary one is going to be 2,4-dithiapentane. Now, some truffle products may specifically call out black truffle oil concentrate as an ingredient, and in this case, it definitely doesn't smell like white truffles, but as far as I can tell based on the products I got, if you see a generic listing on the ingredient label of flavoring, or truffle flavor, this is likely made with a high concentration of the sulfuric and garlicky smelling 2,4-dithiapentane. Even if it's made with summer black truffles, it's actually mimicking the main aroma compound of the prize tuber magnetum. Or to sum this all up, most black truffle products are likely flavored with the aroma of white truffles. And I wish you could smell these in person with me because it still blows my mind. But now you're probably wondering, if winter black truffles don't have 70% of the 2,4-dithiapentane, meaning they don't smell like white truffles, then what do they smell like? Well, if you're someone who doesn't like the strong odor of white truffles, you may love the earthy, mushroomy warmth of winter black ones. Black winter truffle is so much more like earthy and like tobacco-y and definitely much more subtle versus kind of the top, fresher, piercing note that you get in the white truffle. Very, very interesting. And I always assumed is that these are basically just kind of the same, but it's really not the case. So if you look at this table in detail, unlike white truffles, there's not an overly dominant aroma compounds, and they can vary from truffle to truffle. And I love this fragrance description from the Truffle Hunter. Deep earth and forest floor, drenched in cocoa and tobacco, layers of dried tobacco, sorghum, and cured olives slowly unfold. Not piercing like white truffles, it warms you like an old friend. And again, compare that to the aroma descriptor of the white truffle. Intense aroma of garlic, fried cheese, and gym socks, like a subterranean trattoria where sweaty chefs have been laboring over deliciousness for hours. So now, I think the question we all want to know is this: can the cheap truffle oil replace the flavor of fresh white truffles? Okay, let's pause for a second because that was a ton of information to digest. Remember, these are the 3 questions we are trying to answer. Can we answer them yet? No. That's why the rest of this video is focused on testing and practical applications. But what we did just learn is important because we now have the needed context to be able to evaluate these questions much better. And here are the key things that you need to keep in mind for the rest of this video. First, winter and autumn black truffles have a different aroma profile than white truffles. They are more subtle, earthy, forest floor, and tobacco-like. And secondly, most fresh black truffle varieties, such as summer black truffles, are completely lacking in aroma. Next, 2,4-dithiapentane is the dominant aroma compound in tuber magnetum, which provides a sulfuric, garlicky aroma. And this is the compound most of us identify as truffle, but this compound is not in black truffles. And lastly, most truffle products are going to be made with black summer truffles with a flavor concentrated in 2,4-dithiapentane. So keep these observations in mind and let's hop into the testing. And for me, this is where things get really fun. These tests are split into 2 portions. The first 3 will be only using fresh black truffles, and the second 3 will be focused on truffle substitutes. So let's dive in. When it comes to using truffles at home, I have 3 questions that I wanted to answer. 1, are truffles better shaved or grated? 2, is it better to use truffles as a garnish only, or can you cook with them? And 3, what is the optimal ratio of fresh truffles to use in a pasta sauce? And all 3 answers will help you get the most out of your truffles. So let's go into test number 1. If you are out at a restaurant or watch a video of someone using fresh truffles, they are almost always being shaved into light little pieces. Now, in terms of sight, these look absolutely beautiful on your plate, but more importantly, the super thin shavings are damaging the cells in the truffle, which exposes the volatile aroma compounds that are awaiting our nose for enjoyment. And the idea is that the thinner the truffle shaving, the more cells are damaged, the more aroma compounds are released. But if I'm already spending $60 to $70 on a single truffle, do I really need to spend another $35 to $50 on some specialty truffle shaver that I'll probably never use again? Or can I use something I already have like a knife or microplane grater? Well, I bought one of those truffle shavers to find out, and here's my observation. The truffle shaver gets thinner slices than can be achieved with a standard chef's knife. Now, a super thin blade and a sharp knife can get thin slices, but truffles are kind of awkward to slice unless you square off a section, which would be wasting some of your truffles. So what I actually decided to use for this test is the microplane. And in theory, the microplane or grated truffles should release even more aroma compounds than these single shavings. Remember, the more cells that are damaged, the more aroma compounds will be released. So with grating the truffles, the microplane is essentially creating a row of 8 teeny tiny slices of the truffles. And this is a concept I've tested in my onion cutting video, and it's actually crazy how big a difference it made when I rough diced the same amount of onions versus a finely minced one. So, does this concept hold up for truffles? Let's see. For this test, I made some cacio e truffle instead of cacio e pepe. I followed the method that I showed in my cacio e pepe video by making the sauce ahead of time with a corn starch gel. And this gel is blended together with some Parmigiano Reggiano and olive oil, where it can be then stored in the fridge and ready for use. To assemble, I cooked some spaghetti until al dente, then added it to a pan along with the cheese cornstarch mixture and some pasta water. I mixed the two together to form a nice cohesive sauce, and then separated it into 2 bowls for serving. To each bowl, I added exactly 1 gram of fresh truffle. Of course, 1 being shaved and 1 being grated. That's way easier. Holy smokes, that's way easier. And before I even got to tasting the pasta, I already had my answer to this first question. Okay, so I did 1 gram of truffle each, grated versus the sliced. And right away, I'll tell you, regardless of how these taste, I'm just gonna point out this was so much easier to use, the microplane grater. Just quickly do a little grating, it works so much better. I actually kind of messed up the first several slices with this, kind of stressing out a little bit, not gonna lie, because yeah, I mean, it feels like you're kind of wasting it. I'll go ahead and use these because we have a lot more tests to do. But yeah, I will just say +1 on the microplane grater. So let's get into these. The waiter at the fancy restaurant has practiced this several times, but if you're buying a truffle to use at home, you kind of only get 1 shot. So I would enjoy the beauty of the truffle when you first cut into it and look at the cross section, but then go for the grater to release the flavor, which, as I found out, both taste amazing, but the grated truffles are definitely a bump up in flavor. This is the first dish I've had using these truffles, so I don't really know how to describe them, but my tongue is just absolutely salivating with that first one. Oh my gosh. And it's not as strong as you would think. I will say that. All right, let's go for the grated. Smells a little bit more fragrant to me. Oh yeah. There's definitely some bump up in flavor on this one. I don't know why this is so good. It's not like a crazy strong flavor like truffle flavored products that I've had. Like I've had truffle fries out before. I've had like truffle chips before. And they have a very distinctive like truffle flavor. This is nothing like that, but it is insanely addictive. Does it look as sexy? No, but I gotta say 1000%, I think micrograding is the way to go here. I am very, very interested now to see how this type of pasta is gonna stack up to some of the like truffle byproducts, the oils, the salts that I got, because I think they're gonna be really different, and I think it's gonna be very, very interesting. So let's break these down into pros and cons. The pros of grading are that more cells are damaged, more aroma compounds are released, and this means that we can use slightly less truffle for a similar effect as shaved truffles. And then third, you don't need to buy a new tool. The con with grading is that they don't look as good. Now, this sounds very superficial, but remember, sight is an important part of the flavor equation that is often overlooked. And while getting fresh sliced truffles at your table may be a way for them to charge you more for just using more truffle, they also do look a lot better. However, for me at home, I think grading is the way to go, and that's what we'll be using to answer questions 2 and 3. Apart from being shaved, another common denominator of using truffles has to do with the timing. And again, you pretty much only see them being used as a garnish that is added right before you eat them. Why exactly? Well, since the aroma compounds are volatile, prolonged exposure to heat, light, and air will cause them to change, and typically the top and middle aroma notes are the first to disappear. And the idea here is very similar to fresh basil and other herbs, which are usually added right before eating. However, my question is, how different really are they? So for this test, I made 1 batch of risotto and then split them in 2. One, I added the truffles directly to the risotto with Parmesan for about 5 minutes. The second batch, I added directly before serving. And this is a pretty basic risotto made by sauteing some grated garlic and grated shallot in butter and toasting it along with arborio rice. After letting it toast, I started adding the chicken stock and letting that simmer down while stirring occasionally and adding more. or chicken stock until the rice was cooked through and the starches had formed that nice creamy sauce. To season this, I added freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano and stirred that in until it was creamy. Lastly, I gave it a taste and added a touch of white wine vinegar for some brightness. Then I split the risotto into 2 batches. For the cooked version, I weighed out 100 grams of the risotto and added it to a separate pan. Meanwhile, I freshly grated 2 grams of the black truffles before folding it into the risotto and letting that heat through for about 5 minutes before putting it into 2 small serving bowls. Additionally, I filled up 2 equal-sized bowls of the basic risotto before adding 1 gram each of the freshly grated truffle right to the top and mixing them up for a triangle test.
I've got a little innovation going on in the taste test now. I've got a little Lazy Susan, and then I also bought kind of a sleeping mask, but I'm very interested to see if there kind of is a difference between cooking it over heat over time versus the super freshly grated and shaved truffle. So let's blindfold up and see what we got here. I haven't had risotto in a while, so I'm also very just excited to eat some risotto. 1, 3. You guys will be able to see whatever this is. I should probably mix these up a little bit at least. Let's start here. Again, this is so good, but it's nothing like truffle flavored things that I've had. Earthy, like, it's so hard to describe. Okay, let's go to, let me get a palate cleanser. Okay, back to neutral, number 2.
So, how different were they? Well, on my first bite in a number 2, I think I picked up on some fresher earthiness.
That one tasted, I don't know if it's different than one, I'll have to go back through. To me, that one tasted a little more earthy fresh, like it was not cooked. Like it has that kind of, dirt's probably the wrong word, but in a good way. Number 3.
However, when I got to the last one, I definitely became a little confused and the flavor here started to run together.
Yeah. I don't know really which one's better. I mean, they all taste good. I think 1 and 3 are the cooked versions and 2 is the uncooked. Let's see what we got. Wait, what even were these? Oh man, I got these confused. Okay, so 2 and 3 were uncooked raw. Maybe the one bite that I got in 2 was kind of throwing me off a little bit. Number 1, definitely a little bit more mellow out. I'm gonna kind of test these again. See, I think this is the tricky thing with truffles, is that if you kind of mix it in well, you probably don't notice as much of a difference. But if you take a bite right off the top when it has been kind of that raw garnish, it is gonna be different. So if I was making risotto again, based on this, I think I would probably lean towards using it in the cooked version for at least, 5 minutes before it's done, maybe just stirring it in with that Parmigiano Reggiano, it definitely feels more cohesive and rounded out together. Whereas this, I mean, it does feel separate. It does feel like fresh truffle on top of good risotto, but they don't meld together as well. And I think risotto might be a very interesting use case for maybe adding some of these other kind of shelf-stable products to the cooked version and then finishing it with some fresh shaved truffle. That's gonna be something I think we have to test in the second half of this video.
Now, before we get to testing fresh truffles versus truffle oil, I have one more question I want to answer. For this test, I wanted to make a truffle cream sauce pasta, and I asked myself, what is the best tasting amount of fresh truffles to add? So I made 3 different batches of sauce with different percentages of fresh truffle added. And the best tasting pasta sauce here is the one that I will be comparing to the truffle oil and other truffle products shortly. So for this, I made a truffle butter with 14 grams of fresh truffle and lightly toasted it for just 30 seconds. And this process is going to release the aroma compounds, which are fat soluble, into the butter and help distribute them throughout the sauce. I set the truffle butter aside and quickly made the sauce base. For the sauce, I added 150 grams of heavy cream to the pan and brought it to a simmer before stirring in 50 grams of Parmigiano Reggiano. Once melted and creamy so it covers the back of the spoon, I added a little drizzle of white wine vinegar for a touch of brightness, then I separated these out into 3 equal 50-gram portions of sauce. While this was going on, I also boiled some fettuccine to use for the pasta, and let's assemble. Now, I did mess up my math a little bit here, so technically these are not 2, 5, and 10% truffles. It's actually 7.7%, 3.5%, and 1.89%. But basically, I added and mixed together the Alfredo sauce and then slathered in different amounts of that truffle butter. And you can clearly see we have 3 drastically different amounts of truffle in the pasta. So let's see which one tastes the best.
Okay, so we have the 2% truffle sauce, the 5% truffle sauce, and the 10% truffle sauce. And I'm not gonna blindfold up for this one because we're actually gonna recreate this same test, and I'll blindfold later on, and we'll test it with some of these other options like saved truffles, maybe we'll do the truffle paste and the truffle oil. I've gotta see. But what I really wanna do here is just taste them and kind of see what the best mix is, because 10% truffles is a lot of truffles to use in pasta. So if one of these other options are pretty good, maybe that's how you can stretch your truffle out to go a little bit further for a dinner party or something like that. So let's go into number 1. Also, might be a hot take, Alfredo with cream is way better than the traditional version that's just butter. I'll say it. That's where I'm at with it. So this one, very good, but you'd have to tell me there's truffle in that. I would just kind of assume that some kind of mushroom but I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that's definitely truffle in there. Still good though. Definitely better. If you're looking for that truffle flavor. I was supposed to start like working out more this month, but this truffle video is gonna set me back like a week or so. Very, very good. Nice truffle flavor. This might be the best thing I've eaten with the truffles so far in this video. That's great. Let's go on to number 10, or 10%. I was a little questioning if 10% would be maybe too much truffle. I don't think that's the case. That is ridiculously good. Just gonna enjoy myself for a minute here. So for me, I definitely think that 10% is the best. And that is a bit of a problem because that's a very expensive pasta to be making. A second thought here though, I think the 5% is a nice happy medium. A whole 10%, if I had like double or triple that amount, I feel like I would kind of get a little sick of it. Maybe that's just an Alfredo thing in general. But 2%, again, I probably wouldn't really mess around with this. It's just not enough. You're not really feel like utilizing the truffle, the flavor that you'd actually want. 10% I think tastes the best, 5% I think is a happy medium. But now let's shift gears and see how these things stack up against truffle products.
Now it's time for the penultimate test we've been waiting for. Can you actually taste the difference between truffle substitutes and fresh truffles? So to answer this final question, I made another batch of a cream sauce with fettuccine and did this in 3 levels. First is fresh white versus fresh black truffle. Secondly is looking at what is the best tasting truffle substitute. And third, we'll put the best tasting truffle substitute up against the final boss, fresh white truffle. So first, I did a quick test of equal amounts of fresh black winter truffle and fresh white truffle, and as is no surprise based on what we've talked about with the different aroma compounds, it's easy to pick out the difference.
I think that's the black one right off the bat. That is actually so cool tasting them side by side. So I think this is black truffle, this is the white truffle. Let's see. So the black truffle, it's so much more like earthy and kind of like tobacco-y, umami, much more like kind of subtle and complex on like kind of a middle and base notes type of aromas. Whereas with the white truffle, you do really get that. It's a top note freshness that is quite different than the black truffle. Which before doing any of this research, just based off of offhand things I've heard or read, I always assumed they were just like basically the same, but they really are quite different.
Now, for test number 2s, I set up 4 more bowls of pasta and added 4 different truffle substitutes as a garnish to stir into the paste. These were 1 gram drizzle of white truffle oil, a 1 gram drizzle of black truffle olive oil, a 1 gram spoonful of truffle paste, and a 0.5 gram sprinkle of the truffle powder.
So ultimately, whichever one tastes best here is the one that will go against the final boss of the fresh white truffle. One observation really quickly though, the truffle paste, powder, and the white truffle oil definitely smell the most similar and piercing. The black truffle oil is piercing-ish, but not quite as much, and I think it might be because this is olive oil, not sunflower oil, so the olive oil aromas might be kind of masking the smell of the black truffle oil a little bit. But let's see how these things taste.
Remember from earlier, most truffle products with truffle flavoring are actually using the 2,4-dithia-pentane, which is in white truffles. For example, this white truffle sunflower oil and truffle olive oil with a black summer truffle piece in it smell very similar, which as we saw in the prior fresh black truffle versus white truffle taste, this is really not the case. So how do these actually taste in a dish? Well, I quickly found out they can be very, very strong.
Smells strong. Top note of that like white truffle scent, but feels like there's some underlying bitterness in there that I'm not really a fan of. Ooh. I think I might have already used too much of the truffle substitute. That one, very, very strong. Also, kind of has some hard, like bitter notes to me. Let's go with number 3. That one was definitely not as strong, and because of that, might have been the best tasting one. These first 2, I think I added way, way too much. Those are just too strong. Or 1 and 2, I'm gonna come back to these. No. 1 is not good, not good. 1 and 2, way too strong, no doubt about it. Kind of makes me a little bit sick. I think I should have used like a quarter or maybe a tenth of whichever one those 2 are. 3 is solid. It's like a lighter aroma, but you still get the taste of the Alfredo sauce. 1 and 2 are completely drowning out like the Alfredo sauce. Okay, so what do we got here? Truffle paste. Oh, white truffle oil. Yeah, man, that's way too strong. Way too strong. Truffle powder and the black truffle oil. Again, even though 3 of these are black truffle, I'm not getting the black truffles that I got in the prior taste tests. So I'm trying to figure this out in real time for you guys. I think I'm gonna bring forward the white truffle oil and the black truffle oil, and I'm gonna use like a quarter of what I added here, and then we'll compare those two to the fresh white truffle. But I think one of my biggest conclusions here is it is crazy how different concentrations they have of these things. Like in this amount that I added, this is just completely unpleasant. This is borderline unpleasant. And these two, just because they're not as strong, you still get some of that Alfredo sauce with like a hint of the truffle aroma, but none of these were nearly as delicious as the fresh black truffles test that we just did.
So after this test, I had two observations. One, these feel less complex than the fresh truffle aroma. And secondly, you gotta be super careful with how much you are using. It's easy to completely overdo it. But now let's put these up against a fresh white truffle.
This is a coffee scale, so it does go down to the 10th of a gram. I am literally going to use 0.1 grams of the white truffle oil just because it was so strong last time. That is 0.1. That was like 6 drops of oil, which I can use a little bit more of this. I'm gonna go like 0.4 of this just because it wasn't super strong. This is for there. So, all right. So black truffle oil, 0.4 grams, just because this was a little bit less strong. Literally 0.1 grams, just because that's how strong that white truffle oil was in that first test. And of course, that beautiful smelling white truffle. And similar to vanilla, there's so much more going on in this truffle than just the 2,4-dithiapentane, but that is the strongest top note that you're getting. And yes, I'll probably be able to tell based on texture alone, but again, I'm just trying to see if any of these substitutes, if you can get relatively close to kind of the delicate complexness of a properly fresh truffle. Oh my goodness. Based on smell, I'm thinking number one is probably the white truffle, but give me a taste. This is the white truffle oil. It's gotta be. It's so obvious. I think that's black truffle oil. All right. I think this is pretty obvious. White truffle oil, black truffle olive oil, fresh white truffle. Fresh white truffle, black truffle olive oil, white truffle oil. So this was pretty easy to tell the difference between them. Again, the white truffle oil is so piercing and kind of one note that you're getting. The black truffle just kind of muted a little bit, which again, I think might be because the aromas of the olive oil are kind of in there. And then the white truffle, yes, it does have that nice top note that the fresh black truffle doesn't, but it still also does have some other complexity going on underneath it, and you can totally taste it's a completely different experience. These really feel like one note that you're getting. If you're actually trying to recreate a fresh truffle, I don't think they do a good job, but I think these still can be useful in your cooking. Let me explain.
So now we have all the information we need to be able to answer the 3 questions I posed at the beginning of this video. First, are fresh black truffles actually worth it? Well, based on my findings and taste tests with these, yes, I think winter black truffles or tuber melanosporum are worth it. But here's what I would do. I would get 2 or 3 friends or family members together to bring your cost to around $15 a person. Then don't buy a truffle shaver, use an existing microplane or grater and shave it into a nice pasta. Now remember, these are not going to smell like you think they should, but they do have a couple of extra benefits over white truffles. First is that they have a longer shelf life. This 5-day-old black truffle that was sliced into it, and it looks basically the same and smells very, very similar. However, just a 1 or 2-day-old white truffle that is sliced into is much more delicate and reactive and way less fragrant. And this brings us to question number 2, are the more expensive fresh white truffles worth it? For me, I do not think fresh white truffles are worth it. Don't get me wrong, they are absolutely delicious and super unique. But someone left a comment on a video and asked, if white truffles were as cheap as garlic, would you make a bunch of white truffled flavored things? And for me, that's just a no. I'm sure you are all starting to realize I tend to take a very pragmatic and kind of utilitarian approach with these. And even a small white truffle costs more than like a nice pan from Made In. So it's just hard to really swallow that cost. However, I will say, if you want to try a fresh black or white truffle, I actually think it makes more sense to purchase and use them at home rather than trying to order them out at a restaurant. A restaurant is going to give you bigger slices and also charge you by weight, where at home you can use the microplane and really get more bang for your buck. And that brings us to question number 3, are there any good substitutes for fresh truffles? I'll put it this way, if your goal is to literally try and recreate a fresh white truffle experience in a risotto or pasta, no, I don't think the substitutes work. It was so obvious to me which one was which, even when I use such a tiny amount. To me, it's kind of like using fresh basil versus dried. You just miss out on a ton of complexity. However, can truffle oils, paste, and powders be used to create interesting tasting food? To that, I would say yes. Cooking is all personal preference at the end of the day, and in fact, even if you get fresh shaved truffle at a restaurant, there's a good chance they are using a truffle oil or other truffle product in addition. Remember, most of us have essentially trained our nose and brain on the strong aroma in truffle products. And if you got a pure white truffle dish where they only use white truffle, I bet you would be very, very surprised, and you might even ask, hey, did you add enough truffle to this dish? However, when it comes to using truffle products, and I cannot stress this enough, be super, super careful with how much you are adding. I could have added the entire $150 white truffle to the pasta and not been overwhelmed, whereas just a single gram or 2 of truffle oil can completely overpower a dish. Anyway, we're going to type up a little guide so you can refer to all the key observations and findings in this video rather than having to rewatch this behemoth of a video. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed. I think this is probably going to be my last video of the year. I'm going to take a couple of weeks off, and we've got big things coming in 2024. So I will catch you all in the next one. Peace, y'all.
Get down. Stop it. Get away. Go. No. Stay there. Stay there. Stay there. Hey, you got a knife. You got a knife.
You're gonna get James, do you hear me? You will get
away.
You will get shot. Put it down. Put it down. You understand me?
I didn't want to do that.
Okay. Did you let it go?
That looks like
You
Call
look
of
like
Duty.
a skin that I would get in like
So
Call of
heavy.
Duty.
That's a level 50 unlock.
Yes.
Oh
this
my
is a level
God.
50 skin.
When you shoot this, just before you shoot it, you're gonna yell out loudly, "Fire in the hole."
Oh god, okay. Fire in the hole! Oh my god! Holy god, okay. Fire in the hole! Oh my god! Holy shit! Oh god, okay. Fire in the hole! Oh my god! Holy shit! Oh Jesus, okay. Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole!
Nice!
So loud and strong.
That looks like
You-
Call of
Like a
Duty.
Okay, we gotta.
Dougie.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta pray before we go to bed. Okay, close your.
This Russian TikTok bodybuilder injected his arms with petroleum jelly for clout, and now, years later, he's undergoing surgery after surgery to cut out pounds of rotting tissue. And the worst part is, he might actually lose both arms. Who would have thought that would have been a bad idea? Permanently skipping arm day and just deciding to fill your arms with Vaseline? I mean, come on, this is a pretty basic life test. Don't inject your arms with foreign objects or foreign substances, because unfortunately, this guy is just yet another influencer who's a prime nominee for this year's Darwin Awards. I haven't seen this guy in ages though. I remember him years ago. Once in a while I get some cursed Instagram post about him, pray it was fake, and then move on with my life. But unfortunately, this is a very real story. So meet Kirill Tereshin, who goes by a few different nicknames online, depending on who you ask. Some people call him Russian Popeye because, you know, of the comparison, he literally looks like a Popeye character. Unfortunately though, they're not real and those muscles don't have too much function. But other people call him bazooka arms, or just Ruki Basuki, which is what he calls himself. And Ruki is currently 29, but this whole thing just kicked off back in 2017 when he got out of the Russian military. Apparently, right after finishing his service in the army, Kirill got really interested in bodybuilding and specifically having huge arms. But instead of, you know, putting in the work like any normal person would want to do at the gym, he found out about something called synthol. Now, synthol, I haven't heard about it until I started researching this video, but it's a site enhancement oil that some bodybuilders use to inflate specific muscles and make them look a little bit bigger than what they actually are. The key thing to understand here though is that it doesn't make you stronger at all. All it does is make your muscles swell up because you're literally injecting something beneath the muscle, so it makes it stick up a little bit. It's like the guitar trick where like you rest your bicep on your guitar for a photo, so it makes your bicep a little bigger. I'm wearing a baggy shirt though, but like, you know, the push. How can I illustrate this? It's the bicep trick, right? See, I have non-existing biceps. But if you rest it on a guitar, wait, there's no difference. I don't have any bicep to raise. In theory, you could flatten it. And if you did have a bicep, it would push forward a little. Bit because it would be flattened. But you see, I don't have too much of a bicep, so we're cooked. Maybe I need to hop on this oil again. Psych, don't ever do that. Please don't ever do that. That is like literally an awful idea. It's usually made up with about 85% oil, 7.5% lidocaine, which numbs the pain, and then 7.5% alcohol to help prevent infections. But unfortunately, Kirill here, he didn't even bother getting the actual product. He just whipped up his own homemade version, mixing olive oil with lidocaine and benzyl alcohol in whatever ratios he felt like, I guess. And honestly, that just sounds like an awful idea. Why would you ever use the original thing, especially to that kind of degree as what he did on his 2 arms? That alone. Okay, why you would do that, that's crazy. But why you would make your homemade cocktail like that and then inject yourself with that much? Come on, that should have been extraordinarily obvious. It was only going to end badly. So I guess he just started injecting this mixture directly into his arms. At first, he used about 250 milliliters, thinking that would be enough. But when his arms only grew by 1 or 2 inches, he wasn't satisfied with the results. So his solution was to keep injecting more and more. Awesome. In an interview from back then, Kirill explained the whole process, saying that in order to reach such size, you need to inject liters into your arms. I was doing it and getting a fever of up to 40 degrees. I was lying in bed, feeling like I was dying. And then it all turned out fine. Okay, so this is 40 degrees Celsius, by the way, because if it was Fahrenheit, that would not be a fever. We're talking 104 fever, dude. And you didn't take that as a sign to stop? Buddy. Okay. I mean, I only had 104 degree Fahrenheit after injecting my arms with some like homemade cocktail fluid I made. Like, oh yeah, I'm fine, obviously. But within about 10 days of starting the procedure, Kirill managed to blow his biceps from a normal size to around 23 inches in diameter. Brother, what are you doing? Like, come on. So just to put that in perspective, just from a quick Google search, most professional bodybuilders who actually train for years have biceps in the 20 to 24 inch range. This dude got to that in like 2 weeks with a syringe and some homemade goop. I don't know about you guys, but I am goop adverse. So I don't know why anyone would want to inject goop into their arms like this, but hey, whatever floats his boat, I guess. Unfortunately for him though, he wasn't done, since he said he wouldn't stop injecting until he hit 27 inches because that was his goal. And as his arms just got more and more cartoonishly large, people started noticing him. So he began posting content showing off his massive biceps on Instagram and other platforms, and the attention started rolling in. And the whole thing was bizarre enough for Russian media to pick up on it. People started sharing his posts, and then you start getting like the posts that I guess I saw a couple of years ago of like, this Russian man has these crazy large fake biceps. And you're like, that's crazy. Swipe. I don't know. I never went and did any more research on him. It was just kind of like, damn, that's crazy. And then you move on in your life. And that's what most people's reaction to this kind of stuff is, which is why this is not the attention you want in life, especially when it comes with this much risk. And I guess Kirill was pretty open about what his goals were from the beginning. He straight up said in an interview that he wanted to hit over 1 million followers on Instagram and then stop working entirely. Yeah, it definitely doesn't work like that, unfortunately. You can't just hit 1 million followers on Instagram and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna retire, because you would be shocked at how little money someone with 1 million followers on Instagram can actually make. It's all about your product, and he doesn't have a product unless he's gonna start selling his homemade goop. Imagine Kirill's little cocktail whipped up in his garage. Here in my garage, I have this homemade goop. You too can inject it into your biceps. Like, that is just, that's horrible. No. Also, finances aside, it just sounds incredibly boring to me to be 29 years old and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna retire. Like, what are you gonna do with the rest of your life? I don't know. But unfortunately, while Kirill was enjoying the attention and growing his followers, following, medical professionals in Russia were growing really concerned about this because a professor by the name of Evgeny Lilin, they were pretty straight up and just said, hey, amputation might not happen immediately, but it's very likely if he keeps this up because this isn't good. He explained that abscesses would eventually develop, followed by inflammation, and that Kirill would be in serious risk of having a stroke. However, even if Kirill completely stopped injecting himself right then and then, all the stuff that he'd already put into his arms, it wouldn't just like magically disappear. That'll all stay in his muscle tissue for 5 to 7 years apparently. That's what I found. I don't really see how all of that just goes away. I feel like that's kind of there forever, but hey, I'm no medical professional. So I guess the damage was already done and would continue causing problems for years, regardless of what he did next. And another doctor described the inside of Kirill's arms as having pathologically changed tissues that looked like jelly with insertions, and said they were essentially abscesses made up of either oil or blood from vessels that have been damaged by all the injections. But despite that, he kept going. He's a mad lad. Like, why? Why would you keep going? I guess because he hadn't reached his goal yet of 27-inch biceps. But of course, it gets worse because for some reason, he decided he was going to get into fighting. I guess if you're using like cartoon logic, wow, he has big arms, I guess he'll be good at fighting, except there's no muscles there. Because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, Synthanol doesn't actually do anything for your strength. It just makes your muscles look big while providing zero functional benefit. If anything, it weighs you down and makes you a bigger target. Not to mention, you know, having the liability of a bunch of toxic fluid in your arms, that can't be good. So if someone's punching your arms and you have toxic fluid, that just sounds like even worse cocktail for disaster. So when Kirill, I guess, stepped into the ring in October 2019 to fight a blogger by the name of Oleg Mongol, things went poorly pretty much immediately. At the time, Oleg was 43 years old, literally twice Kirill's age, and he absolutely destroyed him. And the fight lasted about 3 minutes total before Kirill tapped out after getting held down and choked. And that was basically the end of his MMA fighting career there. But he wasn't completely done with fighting, because then he signed up to a face-slapping competition against a guy by the name of Vasily Kadmovsky. And this guy was apparently Russia's champion at slapping people in the face. So obviously that went terribly. Kirill came out barely conscious and was barely able to stand. But by late 2019, the situation was so bad that Kirill couldn't really ignore it anymore. That's when the Russian model and activist named Alana Maveva got involved. Alana worked with people who had botched plastic surgery and cosmetic procedures, and when she saw what Kirill had done to himself, she decided to help him out. She started raising money to get him proper medical treatment and eventually got him set up with a surgeon at a university hospital in Moscow. And when the doctor eventually opened up Kirill's arm and looked inside, what he found was somehow even worse than what he could have expected. First off, as we mentioned earlier, he hadn't been using actual synthol like he was claiming. The doctor discovered that what Kirill had actually been injecting was just straight petroleum jelly. So he was injecting essentially Vaseline that you buy at the drugstore that's meant to be on your skin, not under your muscle tissue. And again, unfortunately for him, he injected about 3 liters of this stuff into each arm over time. And to make things even worse, the doctor explained the petroleum jelly had completely saturated Kirill's muscle tissue and blocked normal blood flow. As a result, the tissue just died and got replaced by scar tissue. And the scar tissue was so dense and hard that it almost felt like wood. Apparently you could knock on it and hear a solid sound. Nice. I can't believe this guy did this to himself. Apparently though, during the first surgery, which took about 2 hours, the doctor managed to remove about 3 pounds of this damaged tissue and petroleum jelly mixture from one of Kirill's arms. And that was about 25% of the total damaged material that needed to come out. He said that Kirill would need multiple additional operations to remove the rest, and that each surgery was complicated because of all the important nerves and arteries that were tangled up in the mass of the scar tissue and the Vaseline. And around that same time, he also revealed that his first plan was way more ambitious. He originally wanted to inject this stuff into other parts of his body as well, but stopped when his arms had, some serious problems. And honestly, That might have actually been the first reasonable decision I've seen him make. But it came out that Kirill had spent something like $15,000 on various cosmetic procedures, including facial fillers. And this is apparently all because he thought it was impossible for a regular guy to date attractive women without these modifications. Dude, you would be so much better off without any of these modifications. This does not make sense. This is literally all in your head. This is body dysmorphia. I feel bad for him because body dysmorphia will explain why he's doing all the stuff that he's doing. Because I definitely don't see the appeal in spending thousands of dollars to look like handsome Squidward, but to each their own. But real quick though, it's now Christmas at Mad City, as we just dropped our Christmas collection over there, which includes our large mouse mats in 3 different sizes and our large toy car mat, alongside of, you know, all of our other cities that we've released. We started this whole concept literally because we wanted to have that nostalgic toy car mat of a city near you or any other cool concept, because, you know, the original toy car mat, it doesn't exist anymore. It was discontinued like more than 10 or 20 years ago. And obviously it was meant to be my backdrop as a city skyline, which is there. I realize that now that I'm looking at the thing, for some reason the camera has like angled more and more to my mystery boxes in the background. But it started off with the original Atozi mat, and then that's when we switched it up to everything else. And then I had the second epiphany of, hey, not everyone wants a large rug or mat like that. So then we made the mouse mats, and we started focusing a lot on the mouse mats because honestly the pattern works perfectly for a large desk mouse mat. I use it myself. I can't move my camera, unfortunately. I could show you guys a picture though. But let's be real, most mouse mats and mouse pads are just boring because they don't have any interesting designs on them, and they don't even last that long because they start flaking up on the end of them because they're not braided. So if you're looking for a last minute Christmas gift for a loved one or yourself, I feel like this is the perfect fit. And obviously it supports the channel massively as this is my brand. But without further ado, let's continue the video. So fast forward to June 2025, and Kirill announces that he was under the knife yet again. This time, his plan was to remove his biceps entirely. He posted pictures on Instagram showing himself with bandages around his left arm. And over the next few days, he shared more photos and videos showing the results. And it's safe to say the before and after pictures of him made it pretty clear of just how much damage he accumulated over the years, because his arms are very visibly deformed. And the videos showed his range of motion has been extremely limited. But then in November of 2025, things apparently got worse again. Reports started coming out of Russia claiming that Kirill was now facing the possibility of losing both arms due to a severe infection. According to these reports, one of his biceps had actually bursted open, leaving a hole with rotting tissue visible inside. And the claims were that he needed multiple skin graft surgeries to save his arms, but the infections had to clear up before the doctors could even perform those operations. And they suggested that time was running out and that the procedures would require a whole team of specialists, vascular, plastic, and reconstructive surgeons all working together. So apparently, after years of injecting Vaseline, that caused his tissue to develop fibrosis, and then necrosis, as his body, as you would expect, rejected the foreign material. And I guess even though he had surgery back in 2019, the infection was supposedly so severe now that the wounds wouldn't heal on their own. However, Kirill himself came out and denied these reports. He posted a video on YouTube saying this.
Привет всем снова. И сейчас снова хочу сделать обращение и уберечь людей от недостоверных новостей в плане меня. Сейчас снова пошла вторая волна и начали выкладывать со мной новость, что типа у меня анализы хреновые, не подходят для операции и ему ампутируют руки. Ребят, не верьте новостям, пабликам, вообще кому-либо, где это выкладывается. Они делают это для того, чтобы привлечь внимание к своим каналам. Вот. Со мной все хорошо. Анализы действительно, ну там, не прям ужасные, но годятся для операции.
So yeah, we had to auto-translate that, but essentially it was like, everything is fine with me, the test went really well, my arms are well enough for a skin graft surgery, it will happen this week. So whether the amputation risk is as immediate as some media outlets are claiming, or if things are more stable than that, I mean, it's hard to say. Who knows? He could be BSing, or they could be BSing. But at the time of the recording of this video, he's still active, and his latest post was a before and after of the removal of his procedures of his face. And honestly, it's almost unbelievable how much his condition has improved, which goes to show you he would have been infinitely better off without doing any of this. And clearly he understands that now, so there's no real reason rubbing this in. But whether this story ends with Kirill making a full recovery or dealing with more serious complications, that's still up in the air. So at the very least, what happened to him should be an extremely clear example to never do any of this to your body. There's literally no upside of doing what he did, even if he did it properly. Like, if you desperately want big arms, go pick up some dumbbells almost every day for a couple years, and then you'll have big arms, even if it takes longer and doesn't get you viral overnight. But trust me, you don't want to go viral for the reason he did. But other than that, feel free to subscribe if you're new here, drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think is going to happen to him in the comments down below. But other than that, I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace. This Russian TikTok bot.
천천히 불태워 네가 잠든 사이 You don't know about me You don't know about me 1, 2, 3 새로운 시작이야 절대 뒤돌아보진 않을 거니까 tomboy. 난 싫어 달려나가. You don't
This one, I'm a visual, so you can actually narrow the search.
I think this is really, really, really good up until, honestly, I think when I was at like ED, I started using the linear tree more. Actually, shout out to Sarah Hill. She's like,
yeah,
I was going for SED and she's like, well, have you gone through your linear tree? And I'm like, what's that? And she's like, you've never used your linear tree? And I'm like, no, I use the graphic tree. And she's like, oh my gosh. So the linear tree really is a place where you can like dig deep. And I'm obsessed with the linear tree now and can't live without it. But I still refer back to the graphic tree for a lot of my GV, especially like my GV girls. I love looking at this and breaking it down. And if they're going for a goal, being able to see how many VIPs are under them, how many market partners, who can we get active, what can we do? It is like a little bit better visual for me personally.
Yes, and to find your link, yes, someone just put in the chat. I'm going to show you that next. But to find someone else's link in your downline, so you will bring on partners and they will say, I want to sign up somebody. So you can search anybody by name or find anybody, and then boom, their websites will auto-populate for you. So this is a very, very powerful thing, not just for your own username, but for other people's websites. Okay, so you know everyone, you have access to everyone in your downline's website. That comes in very, very handy. So the other way is actually, I'm going to show you guys how to change your photo also. So you can go to tools. Everything you need ever in your business is up here. So I do encourage you guys like to kind of tinker around with it.
Again, the fact that people don't know how to do this shows, in my opinion, that they do not have proper onboarding information and trainings and stuff like that. Like, think about it. When you are starting a corporate sales job, right? Any sales job, any job, period. The orientation for like your training and stuff, that's day one, babe. Day one. Where do you find your username? How do you log into Salesforce? How do you change your picture in your email? Like, this is how you access your email. The fact that they're going over this with people who aren't brand new is wild to me.
But under your marketing site, this is your website. You'll be able to, once it loads, course, my internet. Come on, internet. But you can change and edit it. So, I mean, okay. How many of you are a vet on this call? Like, you've been doing this longer than a year and you did not know? Put a 1 in the chat. You didn't know you could go find every single person in your downline's website. Okay. So we all learned something. Okay, great. I don't know. Okay, looks like it's coming. My goodness. There we go. So you can have, yes, right here in the top right corner, it can say edit website, and that's where you'll be able to add a photo. So I tend to use the one with my username in it versus this one, but both of them will link to your same page. So that's the little pro tip there. Yay.
So good. Okay, we're gonna zoom through the rest of this. I know we're almost at an hour right now. But okay, so let's go down to the launch your business. Now, again, this is not just for people who just started. If you, I continually am doing this on my social media. I'm continually doing this with people, conversations, different things that are going to constantly keep your business in that activation mode. So launching your business, checklist that you need to have on your social media. And checklists that you need to do in general. Your coming out intro post. Okay.
Let's talk about this. So they constantly will say, all you have to do is post. You don't have to do reach outs. You don't have to be that girl. You don't have to do cold messages and stuff. Girl, just because you don't call it a cold message doesn't mean it's not a cold message. Like they constantly are just reinventing and redefining words. And being like, no, that's not what it is. It's this. And it's like, no, girl, that is a cold message. You messaging someone out of nowhere, if you know them or don't know them, about something y'all have never talked about, especially a sales opportunity, that is a cold message. That's what that is. Making a 100-person list. Okay, Amway. 100-person list. A list of 100 people you can exploit. That's what it is. That is so uncomfortable.
Maybe you've been a market partner for 2 years. Maybe Christina just pulled up my Instagram and I have pinned to the top was allow me to reintroduce myself. I do this probably once a month. I do like a reintroduce myself, kind of talk about like what's new, what's happening. And right now I'm going to redo it because, we've obviously made a lot of changes. We're going to be traveling more in a motorhome. We launched a new Airbnb. We've done some things. So you're going to have like that on your social media, your why. Why did you start this? If you've been a market partner, okay? Why did you start this? You really, really, really need to stay focused on and not stay focused on where you were and not where you are, but really keep your headspace in that place of what made you run in this business? What was your why when you started in this business? Maybe you're, an AED right now or an SED right now, but what made you say yes? And I am constantly personally talking about, how we had money to pay our bills, but we had money for nothing else. I wanted $250 to take my kids to the movies. That's why I started running, in this business. But I really started going when I realized what the opportunity was.
So I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong because I get all of these women confused, the ones that are at the top, but I'm pretty sure that Krista Crawford, her husband, it might've been Sarah Hill's husband. I think it was hers though. He was a firefighter and he refused allegedly to get vaccinated, and he then was let go allegedly from being, this is what I remember her saying, let go from being a firefighter. That is such a stable job. Dangerous, sure, but very stable. So when you're someone who's in sales or makes money on social media, like, girl, it is key that if you have a spouse, having a spouse with a stable job, okay? Because this job is fucking crazy. You could make $40,000 in revenue a month, and then the next month is like 2. It's insane. But the thing is like with her, I think that they moved out of their house because they could no longer afford it on just her still making a good amount of money, but her dwindling income when it comes to money. And like, that's not stable, but still, of course, I mean, they have their Airbnbs, they have a fucking motorhome, they have all these toys, but it's like, okay, well, where are you going to keep all these toys now if you don't have this giant house with this monster of like a warehouse garage to keep all your toys in? Wild. So I think that's why she quit, or why they're selling their house, is so that they can have that money if they're even able to make a profit on it. I don't know if they will be able to, because it's not really like the best time to sell a house right now, in my opinion. At least in Florida, it's not. I don't know how it is out there, but don't seem like it.
An unboxing video. You guys, I get so many messages on this. How do I do an unboxing? I don't have all the products. I don't have this. I don't have that. Whatever you have in your shower, do an unboxing. Talk about it. Hold it in your hand. You don't have to have every single thing. You can put stuff on screens now. You could do all different types of things. A launch event. Now, if you are growing in your business, your launch event is not just your launch event. It needs to be other people's launch events. So are you going to do a virtual launch event? Are you going to do an in-person launch event? And your 100-person list. So I'm going to challenge you guys, and my team knows this, but I want them to do it because this is the proof of how many contacts you actually have in your life. Go to your phone book go to your contact list on your phone. Okay, scroll all the way to the bottom and go drop in the chat how many contacts you have in your phone on your contact list. Go all the way to the bottom and go drop that number in the chat. I have 582, 385, 200, 1,038, 500, 174, 800, 203. I mean, you guys, 100 people. And guess what? No matter how high that number is, every single one of those people wash their hair. Every single one of them. They wash their hair.
Girl, if you're already in money, a majority of those people are also already in money. That number is irrelevant. But again, it's that guise of like, oh, but you do have, look how many people you know. You don't know all those people. Also, some of those numbers, like this is such bullshit. Think about it. Like I have my vet's number in there, my doctor's number, like your kid's school's number, your nanny's number, your grandma, grandpa, like numbers of people who were dead, numbers of people who like landlines, people who you don't talk to anymore. That's complete bullshit. But again, that's how a lot of these people in this company specifically, but in multi-level marketing companies and scams at all, like these making money scams, will use numbers to like common things that like, oh, well, yeah, there are so many. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. It's the things of like, oh, well, at first glance, it seems promising or like it seems legit. But again, always with these types of grifting scams, if you ask more than like 5 questions or think about it longer than like 5 minutes, it starts to fall apart. And that's 100% always what happens.
So every single one of those people is a potential. How many people are you having conversations with? Because I bet you're not having enough.
That's always it, usually. Like, and before, like when we first started, it wasn't so heavy on social media. We were literally like going nuts with our network. Like it was true network marketing. Like, I mean, I want to send you samples. I want to send you bottles. Can I wash your hair? Like it was a lot of the conversations. And if I had dead time in my day, I knew, okay, I need to be talking to people about money. I need to be having messages. And so if that can go to your mindset instead of I need to post more, it's like, no, I need to actually communicate and have more conversations. Like having DMs and conversations about the products are going to be what is like propelling your business. Posting on social media is marketing your business, but it's not necessarily going to convert the same way a conversation will. Like we post so that people DM us and have a conversation with us. And there's a lot of businesses that will actually pay to start conversations for like huge companies now. And they're learning that the direct DM is actually more like a higher likelihood of someone buying versus posting for advertisements and sponsored posts. And same reason that email marketing works, right? Because you're having that direct contact to the person.
The same reason why email marketing works. Okay, grandma, you guys, look at your email right now. Open that shit up on your phone. How many, even right now, like I just opened my personal one is like the one all the shit goes to. Like I'm going through it right now. Like, okay, that one's from FedEx. I'll keep that. I need to look at that. And like all of these other ones from Patreon, from Shein, which I haven't, we need to unsubscribe from that. Why am I still on a Shein list? ManyChat, Glamnetic, Ship, all these things. Like I just go through and I delete them. Yeah, email marketing really works. No, posting on social media and actually creating like an engaging parasocial relationship with your audience actually works. But if you actually have like something of value, and not meaning like something super like secret and like all that, but something funny or something engaging or something shareable, like something relatable to share, not just you trying to sell something constantly. I hate it here. I mean, I love it here, but I hate it here.
And you're not just hoping and praying that they see it amidst, whatever. So what are some other ideas for launching your business and what feels like the most authentic way for you to share with at least 40 faces a month? Like, and this isn't like, oh, I just want to post. This is like, how do I see 40 faces in my month? And if you work somewhere, you work multiple jobs, you're busy, you're seeing a lot of faces. So count those and like take that opportunity to say, what shampoo do you use? It's like so simple to start that conversation. But one-on-one coffee dates.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Leave Rebecca in marketing alone, okay? Leave Taylor in sales alone, okay? She doesn't need. What shampoo do you use? That red flag. Why are you worried about my shower routine? Why? Does my hair smell? Like is this about to be a backwards compliment? Krista, leave me alone. That is a surefire way to get people to absolutely avoid you at work. Not only that, but also, isn't that against like HR guidelines? It's literal solicitation at work. That's against HR guidelines. You're making other people uncomfortable. Don't do that. Please, for the love of God, do not do that. Just completely obliterate every circle of people around you.
Or meeting up with someone for happy hour. That's actually how I reconnected with a lot of my business partners and ended up talking to them about Line8 and getting them onboarded. 3-way calls with your upline. This is your upline's love language. If you are like, I want to do the best in my business, get your uplines calendar full with 3-way calls where you grab someone and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, run with that in that time of your business. Run with your newness because you have something we don't have. If you are like, I usually give this analogy when I talk about this. And if you're pregnant right now and expecting a baby, do you want to talk to somebody with a 10-year-old? Or do you want to talk to somebody that's also going through a birth or just went through it? So your newness is actually more appealing than Krista and I's expertise. Like, people want to be in part of that journey with you. So share that you're new, share what you're learning, share your experience, and take people along for that ride versus trying to be some money like guru.
Yes. Agreed.
And then hosting in-person events. I mean, that's huge. And especially for all of you that are in the comments saying, the girls in my local town say it's too expensive. Have them over, wash their hair, show them it's a good time.
Wash their hair? You can't do that. Like, unless you're a hairstylist, can't you like not wash people's hair? Right? I don't think you're allowed to do that. Also, that's so cringe. Come over and have a hair washing party? What? Also, one thing that kills me is they're like, yeah, invite a friend out for happy hour. That right there breaks my heart. I just imagine like how annoyed I would be if someone was like, hey, do you want to go out and get drinks? And I'd be like, oh my God, yeah, I would love that. And maybe I didn't know that they were like in money or something. But I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love that. Like, I am tired. I need to speak to another adult that is not my husband. Love him so much. But dear God, I would just love to have like some time with like a girlfriend. Absolutely. We go out, get an appetizer, get a drink. We're looking so cute. And you start talking to me about a business opportunity, like seeing people as dollar signs, and like that is a surefire way to isolate yourself and make sure you have no friends. That would break my heart as a human in general. That sucks, being seen as like that someone's trying to use you and it's like, cool, so you didn't actually want to hang out with me. Awesome. I love that. Great. But again, when you are in these types of high control groups, especially ones that are transactional, multi-level marketing companies and things like that, you are conditioned to just see people as they are literally saying right now. You're conditioned to see people as opportunities, as dollar signs, as everyone is a new recruit. Every contact in your phone, I don't care if it's your vet's office, girl, text them right now, send them shampoo.
It becomes like you kind of take away the veil of like, well, they need to buy it to try it. No, they should be able to go try it and fall in love with it. And then they know why they want to buy it and why it's worth it, not why they're spending money on shampoo that might not work for them, you know? And then social media is at the tail end of that. But notice we put every single in-person one first, because if you are just trying to rely on social media, you're doing yourself a disservice, 100%.
So it is easier to do a sale in person because the person can't like get away from you, right? I know that sounds bad, but it's true. In-person sales is so much easier. On the phone, they can hang up on you. On email, they can ghost you. On text, they can ghost you. Social media, they can ghost you. But when it comes to in-person events, like you're holding them hostage, basically. But also think about this, like how they've been griping hard on in-person events this call, and then also send them full-size products. Just send them products, whatever. That's money out of your own pocket. Hosting an in-person event, unless it's at your own house, that's gonna be pretty expensive. Even if it is at your own house, that's pretty expensive. You're buying drinks, you're buying like favors or whatever. Even expensive, not necessarily like monetarily, but like time out of your day. I mean, are you paying for a sitter? Are you like sending your kids to their grandparents' house? Are you having a cleaner come? Are you cleaning, you know, yourself? Or, you know, putting that stress on yourself and having people come over to your house? And then after that, the aftermath of it, especially with like in-person events, it's like, oh my God, now every time, like, I don't want to hang out with her because is it going to be like her talking about this thing the whole time? Like, please stop. I don't know about you guys, but like, I know I personally cannot stand when I'm out somewhere. A good example is my husband and one of his best friends. Whenever we go on double dates with him and his basically wife at this point, I literally will sit there and be like, no more work talk. Please, for the love of God, I don't want to hear about work anymore. Nothing to do with work with you two, please. Because it isolates other people. I hear about it enough. I don't want to hear about it. And like, y'all can text about it, but let's just like enjoy each other and like talk about other things for the love of God. And then the night's great. It's wonderful. Love it so much. Thank you very much. Also on this slide here, that is not in presenter mode. Swear to God. Says here, what feels like the most authentic way for you to share with around 40 people this month? These are some ideas. Or rather, here are some ideas. First of all, what the fuck is up with the line spacing on there? Also, why are there 14 different fonts? Y'all are masters at branding and marketing. Can y'all please just use a Canva template? Leave it to the professionals, okay? Good God, this line spacing is criminal, absolutely criminal. But the way it says authentic is quite interesting because realistically what they would mean, I would think, is organic. What feels the most organic and like easy and natural, not authentic, because think about it, your ultimate goal and your intention with these reach outs, with talking to people, it's not authentic. It's a sale. It's not authentic. It's not transparent. You're trying to make a sale and you're acting like it's a coffee date. And like it's a host an in-person event. Are you actually telling the person like, hey, let's meet up and I'm gonna tell you about this business opportunity? No, you're not saying that. Oh, come over to my house and I'm gonna wash all of your hair in my kitchen sink. No, Bethany, I don't want you to wash my hair. Are you gonna style it afterwards too? Are you a hairstylist or am I gonna leave with sopping wet hair? I just came over here to do a paint and sip craft night. Why is my head in your sink?
And then new business partners, you can write down your new business partners here and make sure they do each of these things. So I'm doing these things as Christina. And then now I have, Stacy here who I'm like, okay, Stacy, did you do your coming out post? Did you do your why? Did you do your unboxing? And that's going to help with the accountability and make sure everybody's propelling together.
But you work for yourself, right? You work for yourself. You're self-employed. You're boss, babe. Baby, you ain't the boss. Your upline is the boss. And then their upline is more of the boss. You're not the boss. Get it together.
Yes. So anyways, I'm already excited. I wish we could dive into next week's already because it's going to be so good. But Christina and I both have Monate focused channels on social media. So she has Monate Education and it's, you guys, I mean, it's filled. It's literally filled with stuff all about money. And this morning she actually just posted like a lawsuits one that was really good, but just product education. And so we want you guys to go join these if you are on Instagram.
A lawsuits one? Why am I even picking up my phone to look? I'm blocked from this woman. I'm pretty positive she has me blocked. Yes, Christina Smallwood has me blocked. But you know who she doesn't have blocked? My dog Wiggum. She does have my dog Wiggum blocked. That's okay. Parasite Detox. Stop it right now.
How can professional hairstylists and people seriously back Monate when there are lawsuits and hair loss claims? Well, let me tell you how. As a professional hairstylist with 20 years experience and almost 8 years with Monate, I have over 1,000 users with firsthand experience. I have extensive experience in this as a product educator. First of all, the lawsuits, I've been around since right before the lawsuits, okay? Turn on the TV and there the lawsuits were. I mean, all over the internet, all over BuzzFeed, all over the local news. So the lawsuits are public record, okay? I happen to know a lot of the backstory of how they got started, the group of people that started them, how they collaborated and all called within a span. Like, I know a huge chunk of the story, so I can speak to what I know and share that here. Obviously, a lot of like legal verbiage and jargon on there, but here's the consensus of like the actual lawsuit. Monate was sued. Anybody can be sued for anything. Matter of fact, they say you're not really successful until you get sued.
Wow. So that's a lot. We're going to have to do a whole nother video about that. God, no wonder I was able to post so much content when I was talking about multi-level marketing companies so much. We're going to have our like favorite legal correspondent on that video. Her name's Rachel Reese. You should follow her here on YouTube. I forced her to start a YouTube channel. Literally showed up at her office. I was invited, but showed up to her office. Me and my son brought her like PR packages from my podcast, the Here for the Clout podcast with Sherilyn Dale. Follow that. But Rachel Reese is amazing. She's on TikTok. She is a criminal defense attorney and she's awesome. Obviously defamation and stuff like that is civil, but she would be, a good person to talk to about all this. We brought her like 4 different types of microphones and like a bunch of presents. And I was like, now you don't have an excuse. You need to film. But yeah, she's awesome. And she could be a good alternative to Emily D. Baker, not an alternative, whatever. Emily, I'm sorry. I know you watch my videos sometimes, but it's always good to have multiple people that you watch. I mean, come on. I watch all those commentary boys like Danny Gonzalez and all them. And then I know a ton of y'all watch me, Sherilyn, and Angelica Oles. Love me some Angelica Oles, that little, I miss her. I got to meet her in London and I love her so much. She's so sweet. Here's a cute picture of me, her and Sherilyn. She's my sweet little baby. Tony and I love her so much. And she's gonna come here and hang out with us. I'm so excited. Anyways, so that's gonna be a whole nother video that we gotta do, I guess. I gotta like make more notes. Like I said, no wonder I was able to post like 4 videos a week about these MLMs. Crazy.
If you are on Instagram, those are our handles. I'm gonna go ahead and put The upline vault on there, I've really just honestly converted like almost one of my chats into a channel. And I have a ton of stuff. All of this is money focused. So even though I do have other women from other companies in there and different things like that, or other businesses, maybe they're not even in network marketing, it's just business.
Hey, I got a suggestion, Krista and Christina. Can y'all have in there a call about how to lead a Zoom call? Because actually, I think y'all need to attend that because holy shit. Like half the time it was just y'all on the screen and not even showing like what these slides are. And this is excruciating. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I do like them showing like back office stuff. However, I do think that they need to have the information that she shared, like with the literally onboarding stuff during this call. That makes no sense, but that should be like, that needs to be mandatory for everyone in the company to do. I know that's hard because like there's so many people, but y'all are at the top. Like there's so many people directly underneath you. Like let's be realistic. At this point, like over 60% of the company, I would think, has to be under Christina Smallwood at this point. Like that's crazy, man. I don't know. Anyways, we have one more minute.
All of my references in there for most of my trainings and everything I do is money focused. So you guys are really going to take away the best bite from everything that I share because I'm using money as the example and allowing them to take away, you know, whatever they want. So the last thing is set your alarm, you guys. Mark your calendar for next week. Make bank with PowerStar, and we're going to do a comp plan comparison, which I think that this is something that everyone really, really, really needs to understand how different and how amazing money is compared to any other, not just network marketing business, you guys, but any other business opportunity, affiliate.
Why would you be comparing a multi-level marketing company comp plan to an affiliate marketing like commission structure? Or, which is funny because Monty tried to do like an affiliate marketing side, which crashed and burned. It was great. To like an ambassador type thing too, which like affiliate and ambassador, like baby girl, those are synonyms basically. Why would you compare that? They're not, I don't want to be like they're not comparable. Like overall, yes, they are in the same like genre kind of like online money making type stuff, but they're not comparable because the people aren't joining affiliate marketing or anything else. I think what they're trying to do is be like, no, you can make more money here than like being an influencer. And it's like, well, not really. I mean, realistically, like in TikTok shop, you could make more money than just like the average person in Mon 8 because the average person loses money in Mon 8 per the income disclosure statement for last year. Like that doesn't make any sense. Again, just trying to compare the things that they're sharing to other things that have nothing to do with what they're talking about in order to make their opportunity seem like a good opportunity or to rather boost up the information that they are sharing. For instance, looking at how many contacts you have in your phone when it's like more than half of those realistically, like if you've had the same phone number, think about that, for 10 years, that's pretty common, right? Like I've had mine since high school. And if I go, oh my God, this would take so long. 868. Girl, I have in the Wise yellow cab. You want me to call them? You want me to text them and ask if they want to join Monty? And then Raw Beauty Christy from YouTube. It just says Christy YouTube. Got it. She ignores me, which is valid, completely valid, girl. I have said multiple times that you're in a cult and it's weird, so I don't blame you. She used to be very sweet though. I don't know if she's rude now, but you know, she went down a weird path. Anyways, then 2 people from a previous company I worked for. One of them is a man that I don't think would want to join Money. Zachy Peas, I don't know who the fuck that is. Shayna Zinky, no idea. Then No Name, BJ Day, a guy I went to high school with. Sup BJ, if you're watching this, how you doing, friend? Miss ya. He was like one of my best friends in high school. Love him so much. And then 101.5 and 93.3 FLZ. You want me to call radio stations, girl? Scroll up and then it's Bunny XO and then My Nanny. Not gonna ask them. There's so many people with the last name Williams. That's crazy. And then again, like my cousins, multiple people I worked with. And like I've worked at so many different places and the manager of the UPS store. What? Which I do love her. Carissa, if you're watching this, I love you, babe. Love you so much. You're an angel. Yeah, like so many people. There's multiple different numbers for like different people. Like, sources that I have in here. Like, but I was thinking about this the other day. Like, there's so many people in my phone that I have no idea who the they are. Aaron Lyft, Zach Lyft. Why do I have Lyft drivers in my phone? What's going on? Having some of these numbers is going to make me cry because I don't talk to these people anymore and I hope they're doing very well. Anyways, who's the most famous person in my phone? Probably Bunny. Or Christy, right? Yeah, I guess so. Dad Challenge podcast? No, I'd say no, Bunny's more famous than him. Plies is pretty famous. I have his number. Why, Chelsea? Why? Because he is a beautiful human. You want me to text Plies and ask him if he wants to join Money? No, I'm not going to do that. Y'all know about Plies? What's the most popular Plies song? It's so funny to see him with his gold grill. It doesn't even look like him because he has the most spectacular teeth. Anyways, enough about Plies and his teeth because I'm not going to text them and get him into money. But again, that's one of the many ways that they will use numbers, like verifiable numbers or numbers you can just like see with your eyes to fool you or try to get you to believe something that isn't necessarily real and that will fall apart absolutely if you ask more than 3 questions. I would love to attend another one of these. Now after watching this or sneaking into this, I have 3 more videos to make. I cannot wait. But right now I have to go film my podcast with Cheryl and Dale, the Here for the Clout podcast. And I will see you in my next video. And remember that if you're subscribed, your butt looks so good. Girl, you got cheeks for weeks. You got cheeks for weeks. If you are not subscribed, you're dead to me and you have Ozempic butt, which means that you lost all of your fat out of your butt and there's nothing there. I'm not sorry about it, but unintended. If you subscribed, it'll look amazing. Okay. 95.8% guaranteed. So I'll see you in my next video. Stay spicy, stay assertive, and stay feral, I guess. Okay, goodbye.